Hey everybody. Had a little mic trouble on this one. Sound quality is not going to be up to usual standard. Sorry. Today I'm going to give my own personal opinion on the age-old debate. Do you watch the movie first? Do you read the book first? Now, I'm not going to be addressing the question of which is better, the book or the movie, because that is, to my mind, a complete case-by-case basis. You can't, unless you are a complete movie or book snob, you can't make a sweeping statement on that. Sometimes the book's better, sometimes the movie's better, sometimes they're equally good but in different ways. I do, however, feel that, at least for myself, I can give a very definitive answer to the question of which you should experience first, the movie or the book. And for me, it's a very simple answer. It's the movie. It's the adaptation. Always. Every time. If there is something that I wish to experience, that is a movie or a TV show, and I know it's based off a book, and let me be clear, I am right now, for the sake of simplicity, I am talking book, not comic book franchise, because we bring superheroes in this conversation and we deal with the fact that most of the movies aren't actually straight adapting specific stories, and even the ones that are severely changing. Forget that. Let's simplify this. And, you know, I'm always going to choose the movie before the book. Now, I will admit that part of that is because I am lazy in the movie or TV show. I'll just say movie. Consider it shorthand. The movie is easier for me to take in as a piece of entertainment than the book. I'm not going to discount that as a factor. I have enough self-awareness where I realize that. But even setting that aside, if I look at all the instances where I have both seen the movie and read the book, every time I read the book first, I didn't particularly enjoy the movie. And nearly every time that I've seen the movie first and then read the book, I enjoyed both. So, why is that? For me, it's a matter of trying to find the optimal way to experience both, if you do intend to experience both. Because I remember I solidified my concept of this when Game of Thrones was really taking off. And I got into it after season 3. Season 4 was the first one that I watched as it aired. And, you know, I had friends who had been reading the books for years before the show had come out, be like, you gotta start to read the books? And I was like, no. I'm gonna wait for the show to finish, then maybe I'll read the books. They're like, oh, but you're missing so much. And I'm like, I know. That's why I'm gonna watch the show first. And what I mean by that is, adaptation, by its nature, trims stuff out. Especially when you are adapting to a medium that has more constraints on it rather than fewer. Because when you write a book, really, you have almost no constraints. You can write anything. You have no budgetary constraints. You have no time restraints. You can go on for as long as you want and describe anything you want. You don't have to worry about what it would cost to realize. So when it gets adapted into a visual medium, whether that be TV or film, stuff has to be trimmed, stuff has to be simplified, stuff is missing. It has to be. But I still think you should take that in first. And before anyone goes, well, why wouldn't you want the most complete version first? I'm like, because if I have that first, then I can't appreciate the other ones. If the first experience I have with a story is the complete version of that story with everything in it, that means that when I go and see the movie, there's a part of my brain that is just going to be looking for everything that didn't make it. Everything that's missing, everything that's off, everything that wasn't how I imagined it. Whereas, if I watch the movie first, and especially if I like the movie, I watch the movie, I enjoy the movie, it's a good time, it's a good story, it's good characters, and then I get to read the book and go, oh my God, there's even more of this thing that I already like. That's terrific. And reading the book afterwards doesn't diminish the experience of the movie, because I've already had my positive experience with it, certainly the first time, and it's easier to recapture on subsequent rewatches if that first one wasn't diminished by sitting there going, well, they didn't use that line. Oh, they cut that character, but I like them. Oh, they changed that. And maybe if you're someone who can shut off the analytical part of your brain better than I can, and that doesn't happen to you, maybe it does make more sense to read the book first. For me, it just doesn't. It diminishes one of the experiences. Now, again, I did mention movie snob, book snob. If you are a complete book snob and care more about the experience of reading than you do about the experience of watching a movie, then yeah, that makes it an easy call for you. I enjoy both. I watch a lot more movies than I read books, but that, again, has more to do with me being slightly lazy and time management. I've had books impact me just as intensely and deeply as any movie ever has. So, a couple of specific examples, just to sort of give you a sense of where I'm at. One of my favorite books ever is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie is kind of divisive, but I feel that in many ways it's a pretty good movie. What I hate in it, though, and I've gotten fairly cautious about using the term hate. I try and be restrictive of when I use that, but I hate the character of Zaphod Beeblebrox in the movie. And it's not because he's a bad character, or he's badly written, or even badly performed, despite the fact that I don't really like Sam Rockwell. In the film, he's fine. Good even. But the reason I hate him in that movie is because he is my favorite character from that book series, and they missed key essential elements to his character. They simplified him. They made him stupid. And in the books, he's not stupid. He's lazy. He doesn't want to have to think about stuff. If he can get someone else to figure it out for him, he'll do that. But he's not an idiot. And the movie made him an idiot. And I hate it. But the only reason I hate it is because I'd already read the book and I know how much better that version of the character was. Watching the second Harry Potter film, and I actually do like the Harry Potter films, and in fact the fifth Harry Potter film is one of the few instances where I liked the movie notably better than the book, even after having read the book first. But in the second film, I was taken out of the climax by the absence of one little exchange between Harry and the sort of projection of Tom Riddle from the diary. There's just and I forget the exact wording now. I should have looked it up. But, lazy. Yeah, notice. Look at that. I like a lazy character in a book. I can't imagine why. But Harry taunts Tom because Tom Riddle's all, you defeated the greatest wizard that ever existed. Basically talking about his own future self. And Harry mocks him and taunts him by saying, I've seen what you are now. You're a parasite. You are forced to leech off another to even continue to exist. Basically mocking this idea that Voldemort became a great wizard and instead talking about what he was reduced to and what we saw in Sorcerer's Stone. And I love that. I love that moment for Harry in terms of a moment of strength and standing his ground. And I love the way he cuts to the heart of this particular projection of Voldemort, this young, teenage, ambitious Tom Riddle. I love that so much. And it's not in the movie. And that doesn't break the movie, that doesn't break the scene, but it does mean that I got taken out of it because, oh, I really was hoping that would be there. Would it have made the scene better? Well, maybe a little. I would have liked it more, but the scene didn't suddenly fail because that was missing, but I enjoyed it less. Now, is there any disadvantage, at least from where I sit, to seeing the movie before reading the book? Well, yeah, and I'll acknowledge that, which is that if you see a movie, and especially if you like it, that specific interpretation of characters, and specifically I think character voices and character appearances, becomes what you think of when you read the book. And that can potentially taint the book reading experience. On the most basic level, it kind of robs you a little bit of your agency as a reader, because normally you have the power to determine for yourself how characters sound. But more than that, if a character has been particularly notably reinterpreted for whatever reason, and again, for better or worse, from how they are in an original work, it can be jarring when you're reading the book and going, boy, the voice in my head doesn't match the way this character appears to be talking. I'm not even talking like just dialect or just the way that, like, the good example for me for that is Jurassic Park, which is a case where I actually think the movie is notably better than the book. But I saw the movie first, and I read the book, and one of the things that threw me off was the versions of these characters that I knew didn't match the versions that were in the book. That was true of Alan Grant. That was true of John Hammond. That was really true of Gerardo, the lawyer. Vastly different characters. And it did make the experience of reading it a little bit weird, because I had the versions from the movies kind of kept poking into my head, but they didn't fit. So there are potential hazards, but I actually think that kind of thing is increasingly less common, because we kind of live in an age where it used to be books were just cool. That's a title that was a hit. Here's its premise. Let's go and do our own thing. At this point, adaptation has gotten slavish more often than not. And it does seem that when adapting a lot of these works these days, most studios and filmmakers are way too scared about ticking off the fan base by changing anything. It's actually way more common, at least it feels like to me, it's way more common these days for movie adaptations of books to not be great because they don't cut enough rather than they change too much. But that's a whole other conversation. What makes a good adaptation, what, the changes that need to happen. And maybe I'll make that someday. And maybe it'll be more organized than this ramble. But this, to me, was just me putting in my thoughts on the question of, do you read the book first? Do you see the movie first? In my mind, if you are interested in both, and you do have the ability to choose which you take in first, the movie. For me, it's always going to be the movie, so that I can enjoy the movie and then read the book and experience that story again, but more. As opposed to reading the book first and then seeing the movie and feeling like I'm getting the story I already know, but less. Book first, movie first, your thoughts, whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff to do. Buttons, links, they take you places such as my Patreon. The support is really appreciated. And other links to check out besides. But if you don't have the time or the inclination, or even if you're like me and you're too lazy to click on those, that's okay too. Because at the end of the day, folks, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.